The number on the screen is not yours. It never was. It is 4:47 a.m. in a city you will not name. The position is $2.3 billion in euro dollar. You built it over 11 weeks. 17 separate entry points, each one routed through a different prime broker, each one sized precisely below the reporting threshold. The position does not exist in any single place. That is the architecture. That is the entire point. You have no office. You have no business card. You have no LinkedIn profile. You have a phone with 6 contacts and a routing number that connects to a trust registered in a jurisdiction most people cannot find on a map. You are 44 years old. You started with a Bloomberg terminal and a salary that felt enormous until it didn't. That was 21 years ago. The terminal is still on. The salary is not a story anymore. You were 23 when you first touched a currency desk, not as a trader, as the person who ran the reconciliation reports after the traders went home. Floor 7. A bank in London whose name you no longer say out loud. The desk closed $800 million in FX volume on a slow day. On a busy day, the number was closer to $4 billion. You watched the screens. You did not touch the controls. Your job was to find errors in settlement records. You found them every time. You never missed one. The head of the desk noticed after 6 weeks. He said nothing. He moved your chair 6 feet to the left. That was enough. 6 feet closer to the actual desk. You understood immediately. By month 8, you were running overnight positions. Small book, $40 million notional. G, 10 pairs only. Tight stop losses, no discretion on the macro overlay. The parameters were a cage. You worked inside the cage and learned every corner of it. You never blew the stop, not once. Then one morning, the desk head handed you a single printed page. A position sheet, $340 million in yen. The thesis was 2 lines. You read it once. You agreed with the thesis, but not with the sizing. You said so. He looked at you for a long moment and reduced the position. It made $18 million in 11 days. He told no one you had changed the size. You told no one either. That was the beginning of the real education. You spent 4 years learning that currency markets do not move on fundamentals alone. They move on positioning, on consensus fragility, on the gap between what institutions believe and what they are actually holding. You built a model, not a trading model, a belief model, a map of where the consensus was fragile and where it was load-bearing. The model lived in 3 notebooks, never digital, never shared. The notebook sat in a fireproof case under your desk. That case was the weight of everything you knew that nobody else had written down. You left the bank at 29. Not because it was time, because the structure had reached its limit. You joined a macro fund in Geneva, $2.1 billion AUM, 6 portfolio managers, 1 chief investment officer who spoke 4 languages and slept 5 hours a night. You were the youngest person in the building by 8 years. You were hired for the EM Carey book, $180 million discretionary. The number felt enormous for approximately 1 week. Then it felt like a tool. The metabolic shift happened around week 3. You stopped sleeping as much. You stopped asking what the market was doing. You started asking what the market believed, and where that belief was structurally vulnerable. The first time you moved a currency, not participated in a move, but initiated one, was in your 2nd year at the fund. A central bank in Southeast Asia was holding a rate decision. The consensus was split. You were not split. You had built a thesis from 3 independent data sources, 2 publicly available but untranslated, and 1 a real estate transaction dataset that a contact had shared over dinner 8 months earlier without understanding what it contained. The model said the bank would hold. The consensus was pricing a cut. You sized the position at $420 million. The decision came. The bank held. The currency moved 2.1% in 40 minutes. The fund made $47 million. You stood at the terminal and felt something that was not pride and not fear. It was recognition. The market had responded to your reading of it. You began to understand that a currency is not a number. It is the collective belief of every institution, every pension fund, every central bank simultaneously. When the belief shifts, the number shifts. Your job was never to predict the number. Your job was to understand the belief before anyone else did. You became independent at 35, not by choice, by logic. The fund structure had become a ceiling. The relationships you had assembled over 12 years, the information architecture built contact by contact, dinner by dinner, across 4 time zones and 9 jurisdictions, these did not belong to any fund. They belonged to you. You registered a family office in Luxembourg. You seeded it with $40 million of your own capital. You told 3 people, 1 sovereign wealth fund contact, 1 former prime broker, 1 attorney in Dublin. By 40, the family office managed $1.4 billion. Not because you raised it, because the returns pulled capital toward you the way gravity pulls mass. You did not have a marketing deck. You communicated through structured channels only. Twice a year, a dinner in Geneva. Once a year, a dinner in Singapore. Nothing written down afterward. The people across the table understood that was the condition of the conversation. Everyone agreed. Everyone returned. Over 7 years, the maximum drawdown was 3.2%. That number was more persuasive than any pitch deck ever written. You do not make trades in the traditional sense anymore. You make decisions, and 6 people execute them. The 6 people have signed documents that would survive a significant legal process. They do not discuss their function with anyone. You have not spoken to a regulator directly in 4 years. Every inquiry routes through the Dublin attorney. Every inquiry has been resolved before it became anything more serious. You are not afraid of regulators. You understand their architecture the way you understand any other system. You know what they can see and you know what they cannot. The gap between those 2 things is where your structure lives. You are not a criminal. Every attorney who has reviewed your affairs has confirmed this in writing. You keep those letters in the same fireproof case that once held the 3 notebooks. You moved the dollar last year, not the way a central bank moves a dollar, in the way a decision made in a room moves one. A coordinated unwinding of a $3. 1 billion carry structure across 4 emerging market currencies, timed to a scheduled Federal Reserve commentary you had read 3 weeks before it was delivered, because you understood the framework well enough to reconstruct the conclusion before the words existed. The currencies moved. Your structure exited before the momentum peaked. The financial press wrote about volatility. Nobody wrote about the decision that preceded the volatility. Nobody knew there was a decision. That is the architecture. That is the entire design. The invisibility is not accidental. It is the most deliberately constructed element of everything you have built. You are 44 years old. You have more access than most governments. You have fewer than 8 people you trust. The social world you once inhabited, trading desks and fund dinners and analyst calls, that world is a long distance below you now. Not in a way that produces satisfaction, in a way that produces a permanent quiet. You notice it most in the evenings, before Asia opens, when the position book is flat and the phone has been silent for 2 hours. The quiet is not emptiness. It is the sound of a structure that does not need you to be anxious about it. The machine runs. The capital is positioned. The relationships are maintained. You learn to inhabit that interval without performance. It took longer than everything else. Somewhere in a glass building in a city that never stops, a 23-year-old is running reconciliation reports. The floor is empty. The screen is the only light. She thinks the numbers are the point. She does not know yet that the numbers are only the surface. Beneath the numbers is positioning. Beneath the positioning is belief. Beneath the belief is architecture assembled over years, one relationship, one dinner, one correctly read footnote at a time. The system will teach her what it taught you. in the same order, at the same pace, through the same expansions and compressions and quiet recalibrations that left you where you are now. A phone with 6 contacts, a trust in a jurisdiction nobody asks about, a position building in the hours before the market opens. No title required. The machine does not need a name on the door. It only needs the door to keep opening.